Chris Yandex, CYInterview covering Las Vegas and the world. If you haven't already, please like this video below and hit the subscribe button below to keep up with everything we have going on here in Las Vegas and beyond. We cover Las Vegas and the world. Some years back, Transformers was a box office hit. Today here on CYInterview, we bring you someone who is sure to be a hit if you want to change your body and improve your health. I'll call her the Transformer for the work she's done with a range of people. Her name is Michelle MacDonald, and we are extremely pleased that she's here with us today on CYInterview. Good afternoon, Michelle. Where are you? How are you?
Hey, thanks, Chris. Great introduction. Very honored to be here. I am based in Mexico. We moved here in 2016 to be in the sun, and I love it.
Well, let me just tell you, there's got to be a reason why you moved to Mexico. So why don't you tell us about your background and what you do and what brought you there?
Oh boy. I'm 54. So if we want to keep this short, I can't go back too far. But I'm from Canada originally, lived in Boston, and then fell in love with my husband. He's from Quebec, which is even colder than Boston. And so one of the reasons why most Canadians that end up moving down to Mexico were trying to escape the cold. So, and then the other reason is I just love the people. The culture here is incredible. It's Latina culture. People are very warm and inviting. I love how interested people are in each other and how supportive people are with each other. So I love it down here, and my husband fell in love with it. And then my mom, Joan, she joined us as well in 2022. She's pretty much down here every winter.
Well, you talked about your husband and you talked about your mom. So why don't you tell about the work you've done with your mom, the work you've done by yourself, and also what your husband's background is?
I'll start with JJ, Jean-Jacques Barrette. He was actually, I met him my first year competing towards the tail end of my year. I met him at a bodybuilding show. And it's funny, one of his athletes I was coming back from the tanning room with her. We were both competing in this drug-free bodybuilding show, Physique Canada. And she was telling me about how amazing her coach was. And I was looking for a new coach. I wanted somebody that was like really hands-on. And so he ended up becoming my coach and also mentored me when I started coaching. He mentored me how to coach. He helped me with programming and how to spot, potential in people, even if they were out of shape, nutrition and all of that. I really learned that from him. And then he was, really mentored by Yannick Morin and Sébastien. I think Boucher is his name. These guys were part of a gym in Montreal. It was a lot of Olympic athletes, and these guys were Olympic coaches. So it's a very clean gym and very evidence-based, and it was called the Bat Cave. So that's where he learned how to really, the sport of natural bodybuilding and coaching athletes to the stage. So I started coaching in 2012. My first athlete actually was in her 50s. And she was already a champion, in her own right. So I was very nervous about coaching her, Janet Gates. And we still stay in touch. She's retired now, but she was unbelievable. We did several shows together. And just an absolute joy to work with. Unbelievable physique and such a hard worker. And then I started coaching transformation clients, which were a little bit different, right? You've got your athletes that hire you to do specific shows or to do like a building season. And they're very focused. They just want to know what to do, and they're very on board with achieving their goals. And then my transformation clients, I started doing those online in Mexico. Actually, I was in Mexico on a holiday, and I've been writing a blog and documenting my journey. And so when I started this, I was already in my 40s, and I had a blog called Your Healthy Hedonista where I talked about the food and the training, and I was really into T-Nation. Do you know T-Nation? I was all into T-Nation and just bodybuilding.com. Those were the big forums back in the day. And gals were reading my posts on Facebook and on this blog, and they were really interested to try this macros-based training and lifting weights with progressive overload, and they were just really interested in trying all of that. So I said, listen, I'll coach you if there's 10 of you. We're going to work as a group. I had this list of things that you had to do, like you had to send your check-ins, you had to take your metrics, like all the things that an athlete does. I wanted these gals to do, and my my philosophy was, if you're old enough to successfully run a household, be the CEO of a company, the things that you would be able to do by the time you're in your 40s or 50s, we don't have to dumb this stuff down for you just because you're not an athlete competing. The stuff that works for an athlete, that gets gals incredibly muscular and shredded naturally, these same principles are going to work for somebody who wants to lose some weight. And then, of course, I always wanted gals to become strong and build muscle, right? Even way back then, before we were talking about the importance of eating protein and building muscle, especially for women as we age, I was already doing that because I know that it's empowering to have a goal that requires that dedication, playing the long game, really pulling those big levers that give health, versus just chasing a number on the scale and trying to be skinnier, right? So that's how we started. The girls said, yep, all right. The women were like, yep, well, we'll do all these rules for you. And I'm still in touch with some of those first gals from 2012, my first, I called it the Body Transformation Challenge. It was 6 months long. And then everything grew from that. Everything's been very organic. Gals just wanting to have those outcomes and wanting to become strong. That became very much the message. Like, I want to become strong. I want to learn how to lift weights.
So at the beginning of this, that great response you just gave us, you talked about competing. So what is it like for you to compete?
Well, I love competing. I've been in sports my entire life. I was heavily into yoga, teaching it and practicing it before bodybuilding. I didn't start, bodybuilding until I was turning 40, and even competed in yoga, which is kind of crazy. But actually, yogis, all I think every sport you can pretty much compete in it, and so I competed in yoga. But when I did my first bodybuilding show, Chris, I just felt so alive. I mean, it was just the pinnacle of everything, nutrition, right? Like a very systematic way of approaching nutrition that would give you a very, almost like a guaranteed outcome. If you did these things for this period of time, you would get this outcome. So you combine the nutrition with the bodybuilding, and, a great bodybuilding coach can get you ready for a show. I mean, depending on other contingencies, but if you're in pretty good shape and whatnot, they can get you ready for a show in 12 weeks, in 16 weeks, in 20 weeks. I mean, it's basically how much do you want to suffer, right? And, how much muscle tissue loss are you willing to risk, again, as a natural athlete. So I felt so alive competing. It really stretched me. And that's something that I talk about with my athletes. You do this not just, for the photographs or to try to win a pro card or win a title. It's the character development that you go through along the way. You're facing your inner narrative, and maybe there's a little bit of negativity still knocking around in your brain. You learn how to push through the impossible, the hard things. I've been 8 o'clock at night having to go get steps in, and it's raining outside, and I've got to get up at 5 in the morning. And my husband's like, "Let's go get our steps in." So we'll chit chat for 20 minutes with our Apple Watches, just getting an extra 3,000 steps in, and learning how to find joy in it and find humor in it and be proud of the things that you have to do to get that outcome that you want. So I've loved competing. And I encourage my athletes to approach competition as a milestone event on a much longer journey of continual growth and continual learning.
So let's just go back. We've talked a lot about it in this, almost 10 minutes. But really, just how would you sum up what really got you into the field of fitness?
Like many gals, I had an eating disorder when I was younger. I became very sick when I was 16. I was a track and field It was track and field season. It was the spring, and I wanted to get to regionals as a hurdler. I was a pretty decent hurdler. I was tiny though. I was about 106 pounds. I'm 120 now, so I was quite tiny and only 5'2". And so I had this idea that if I was skinny, because like the skinnier girls seemed to always be winning, and we didn't have like nutrition coaching in the high school I went to, so I just starved myself, and then that became a pattern of starving and binging and all of that. So that stayed with me till I was 32. I had a miracle cure during my teacher yoga training, which we won't talk about here, but throughout that process, I became very fascinated by nutrition. I was reading tons of nutrition books. One of the first high impact books I read on nutrition was by Dr. Michael Colgan. It was called Optimum Sports Nutrition. And that was the first time I really heard about optimizing your body through nutrition. And then, as I was going through yoga, and I got so much benefits from that, which is really about understanding your mind, right? And understanding your nervous system, this idea of kind of objectively being present in your body and calming yourself down and having conversations with yourself as you're doing the thing, as you're doing yoga. You're calmly talking yourself through it and regulating your breathing, to do crazy postures like standing on your hands. And ultimately I was able to stand on my hand and bend my legs over my head and put my feet on my head at 36. And so when I discovered bodybuilding, for me it was like that last missing piece. I had the nutrition. I went to culinary school, the School of IIN, Integrative Nutrition. I had the nutrition I knew about nutrition. I didn't have a system for applying it yet. I knew the importance of having a healthy body, but it was mostly yoga and handstands and chaturanga, so there was strength involved, but still not bodybuilding. And when I started to do bodybuilding and learned about having these regular meals throughout the day, making sure you're getting your protein in. And yoga, we had a lot of pride in not eating. Yogis don't need to eat. Putting on muscle tissue. Like in my first year, I had such a great response. And I loved it. I loved how I felt. I loved how my body was changing. I think I took 1 million photos that first year, Chris. It was like, wow, I've got abs. I've never had abs before. Oh my God, look at my shoulder. I never even thought about my shoulders before. So I really fell in love with it, and I felt like it was that missing piece. So the triad there is like the mindset, the nervous system regulation. It's the nutrition piece, right? Like really understanding how to eat to get very particular, precise outcomes. And then the training piece, right? So how to put on muscle, and also, mobility, flexibility, how to maintain good range of motion as you go through life. And the driver for me has always been about how to optimize the body as we age. So it's really given me that. I feel here I am at 54, and the 50s are not what I thought it was going to be. It's great. I feel the same almost. Like there's niggles, of course, with age, but it's been incredible. And the older gals that I coach now, I've got a lot of 60-year-olds and as well as 70-year-olds, and seeing how these women, how their bodies have responded so well to training and nutrition. It allows me to be fearless about getting older, right? We're doing the right things.
So let's talk about what brought you to Tulum. Is there something that just makes that environment good to train people? Tell me about the work you do down there.
I actually don't do a lot of training in person down here. I do love in-person training. So now and again, we'll do a retreat or something, and gals will come down here and we'll do lots of in-person stuff. We do about 2 or 3 workshops a year. We're going to be we're going to be over in LA in May 4th and 5th with Jen Thompson, who's probably the world's strongest female bencher. I think she's won 100 trophies or something like that. She's in the Powerlifting Hall of Fame. But other than that, I don't do a lot of in-person. Everything's online. Really, Jay and I live down here and work online on our computers. So
what is it like to train people then for through the Zooms and the virtual things? Like, did you have to come up with a different kind of method as compared to training people in person, for example?
I love that you asked that. Yes. So my whole system, I call it the fitness model blueprint, which is it's kind of like the cut, build. So we break down body fat, usually with most gals that start. And then, of course, a lot of them have such a great response, right, to the training and nutrition that um, they do put on muscle even in a deficit, right? We have that great beginner gains. So, that first cut or first diet to get rid of excess body fat. Some girls have to lose 15 pounds. Some it's like 80 or 100 pounds that they have to do in stages. So even with that first cut, there's a lot of amazement that happens with, oh my God, I've got muscle now. I look better now. If it's very common for girls to say, I look better now, I feel stronger now than even in my 20s. So we'll get that in the first cut. And that's where we say, well, listen, that's nothing. Like now with the reverse diet and really like eating enough food, training with progressive overload, now you're going to start to really see some exciting stuff happening here with muscle hypertrophy. So, what I teach my coaches to do is we have a very rigorous onboarding process with coaches. We have a 6-month academy that they have to go through. So you already have to be accredited, obviously, before we accept you into the academy. And it's a very rigorous academy, lots of hours, lots of practicums. And then we have another 6 months of mentorship. And then intensive mentorship, and then continued mentorship with all of our coaches that work with us. And why we do that is because I stand behind my coaching methodologies and our brand offering, Chris, which is we cultivate the inner athlete in every woman. We're incredibly inclusive. I think my mom's a perfect example. You don't know who is inside that body, right? Just because my mom was 70 and obese, 39-inch waist, wasn't moving well on medications. She had arthritis, poor movement, mobility, and all of that. Trouble with technology, all of those things. Still, yeah, we look for the inner athlete and we try to tease that out slowly over time. And how we do it is through a very systematic way of, number one, on the intake form, we have movement analysis, which I hope is pretty standard for online coaches. Or any coach, like you're looking at their movement patterns. And then we kind of put them into buckets of like real beginner, and then, kind of a novice lifter, and then more of an intermediate lifter. And most of the gals actually come to us in that, real beginner or novice lifter, those first two buckets. And then we spend time getting their movement patterns improved. We'll usually focus on one lift that they can really progressively overload. So we start teaching them about progressive overload, right? We start teaching them about really looking for progress in one lift, right? Or a handful of lifts that you continue to integrate into the programming from block to block, which is very different. Most people do kind of, I call it like a shake and bake mentality with lay people, right? Well, we'll just keep throwing variety at them because that's what people want. They want variety. I'm like, well, what people want is a result, right? So if you can onboard them that you'll get these results if you do these things, then, you'll get them to do the right thing and do it with gusto. Usually most gals will get them to do something. I like to teach gals a barbell lift. Again, it's the concept not just of transforming your body, but, be going through the hardness of going to the gym and feeling intimidated. And then after a few months, you're in there putting your plates on and you're feeling confident in the gym and people are respecting you and probably saying something to you like, wow, like you're getting really strong, or wow, you training for something. And it changes your whole, inner narrative of who you are and what you're capable of. So we'll try to teach them how to do a barbell hip thrust. It's a relatively simple compound, movement, and you can get quite strong at it. Most of our gals get at least up to 225 for like a set of 8, which is significant, right? Like these, 45-pound plates, 45-pound plates on the bar, both sides, and then upwards up to, we have got gals who are thrusting over 400 pounds. So yeah, we really teach them great movement patterns. We analyze their lifts through video submissions through a platform called TrueCoach. And there's a lot of education around lifting well. And then the coaches are all trained to, or educated to, really adjust programming as needed. So we do a lot of support there. If you see a movement pattern that needs to be regressed, right? So you tried to maybe progress somebody to like a Romanian deadlift, and you're just not seeing their ability to pack their lats or create, good body tension. Maybe their back is rounding. And so we might regress them, right, to something like a tempo or something like that, a tempo Romanian deadlift, a lighter weight, more reps. Then that's what we do. But we don't give up, and we really collaborate with the client to educate them and empower them to lift safely. We're not afraid to coach the older female. And I think that's very, very pervasive in a lot of gyms. People are really, they think the female body is this broken body and, can't do anything with it. And that's just not true. The female body is incredibly resilient. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But we have gals going from, I call it 0 to hero. I think one of my clients, Jody, oh my gosh, I apologize, Jody, Ekovitz. She's a perfect example of somebody who went from, a goblet squat, bent over, kind of falling down on her thighs, not really getting full depth, and now she does back squats, 150 pounds for a set of 8. She sumo deadlifts 170 pounds for a set of 8. Great form. Bench presses. I think she's at 125 pounds for a single, which is amazing. She's 113 pounds. She was 113 pounds on stage in November, right? So as you know, 125 pounds for a 54-year-old woman who's not that big, that's a nice, progression in just a handful of years, all online.
Michelle, if anybody is listening to watching our conversation today on CYInterview, they would think, wow, she really knows some stuff. She really understands, what it takes to get someone to a certain level. But let's just talk for anybody who's casually watching today, who may not be a fitness enthusiast like you. What are 3 things that everybody can do to improve their fitness?
Eat more protein, right? So to be specific, try to eat your body weight, your target body weight. Let's say, like if you were in your fighting shape, right? So maybe you're 5'4" and in your best shape of your life, you weighed 130 pounds. So try to eat your body weight in protein. So 130 grams of protein per day, and you can split that up, and it's not that hard to do. There's tons of great recipes running around on the internet on how to eat more protein-centric meals, and that's for whether you're a vegetarian or an omnivore. So that's one thing. And eat the colors of the rainbow, get a lot of produce in, eat your 25 grams of fiber a day if you're a woman. And I don't know, I don't coach men. I think it's somewhere around, is it 35 or 40 grams of fiber a day for men? Work on your strength. So I'll be very generic, right? Like if you're not going to lift weights, somehow work on becoming stronger. So if you're into body weight stuff, do more push-ups, or learn to do band resisted push-ups or weighted push-ups. But you can start small by doing incline, doing push-ups against your kitchen counter. And then eventually over time, you want to be very systematically improving your strength. So you want to see yourself doing them to the floor. And that might take, if you focus on that, you could make that happen in like 3 months. So becoming stronger and being very systematic about it. Be that person that goes to the gym with the training log that's writing everything down. So eat your protein and your colors of the rainbow, get your fiber in, get stronger. So work on your strength, build muscle. And the third piece I would, I don't know if I could say, it's a toss-up between, learn how to emotionally regulate. I think that's so huge, especially with all the things happening in life coming at you. Learning how to, understand how you're feeling, recognize patterns of behavior, like, oh, I'm feeling that hot flush feeling I feel when I'm starting to get anxious. All right, so take a deep breath, do your your breathing exercises and calm down so that you can make better choices. So it's going to be between that, Chris, and work on your cardiovascular health as you age. You have to have, the cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer in the world, and so everything that can improve your cardiovascular health, not being overweight is one of those, and so doing all the things that would improve your cardiovascular health that way, and then of course training your heart. So some kind of working on your stamina and your endurance, your ability of your heart to pump blood, oxygen-rich blood throughout your body. I hope that wasn't too complicated.
I think that was actually a very well-defined answer that people can then go research and look up. I think you gave them some very, listen, it may seem like basic knowledge, but it's a little bit higher than basic knowledge, but it's much more, as I like to call it, in-depth basic. I'd call it in-depth basic.
I like that. In-depth basic, Chris.
Because if you just tell people something and they really don't get any real, it's like what does the word mean? Well, I got to go to the dictionary and I got to look up what that word means. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, do this, but this is what it means, is basically what you were basically doing there, which I thought was fantastic. So moving along, so let me just ask you, on this, we're here in Las Vegas. We've had on numerous like dancers and showgirls and acrobats. Have you ever worked with people in these fields, particularly to help them stay fit, extend their careers? Is that something of interest to you?
It's fascinating. I have not. The only athletes I've worked with are powerlifters, some endurance athletes, and a lot of bodybuilders.
Would you like to work with people in other fields who are, what I like to call it, performers, to do a lot of physical activities? Are you just open to anybody?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think people that are athletic, they are very, very coachable. They've probably been coached their entire lives, and the human body is the human body. It responds to those basic levers really well. And I wonder sometimes. I say this to my husband, because he loves watching fighters and wrestlers, and I think to myself, God, you'll hear about some wrestler that didn't make weight, and they've had to do some crazy, diuretics and starving themselves, and I'm like, why don't they work with a bodybuilding coach, right? Because bodybuilding coaches, we know how to preserve muscle, minimize fatigue, and get you to peak in every physical way for a particular day, and it's what we do. We manipulate mass. So yeah, I wonder sometimes if maybe some people in other industries, I wonder if they're getting served like what we know in bodybuilding, like this works, it works well, it works in a very definitive period of time for people that can do the work and have the integrity to have great communication with their coaches.
Yeah, that's basically what I was thinking. Speaking of that, in Las Vegas, what a lot of people don't know is that there's a huge amount of gyms, boxing, UFC, physical fitness places, physical competitions, competing competitions. Have you ever been to Las Vegas? Have you seen any of that scene here?
Oh God, yes. My husband and I used to be part of a company called Magnum Nutraceutical, so we would always go to the Olympia, to be part of the expo for all those years when the Olympia was in Vegas. Then the federation that we used to be with would always have a show in Vegas as well. So we were there a lot. I really like going to Vegas, and they have such a great gym scene. It's an incredible gym scene.
Yeah, it's people don't even realize that how many different gyms for so many different sports and so many different very specific trainings are here. Aside from everything else, there's just a huge fitness and spa community here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we have a big team actually competing in it's a federation called FMG, Fitness Muscle Glamour, and there's a show there in mid-November. So we're going to be there. We have a big team that's going to be showing up, and I'm excited to head back to Vegas. I also love to watch shows, and I usually like to go and try to a couple of the great restaurants there. The food in Vegas is incredible.
Oh, absolutely. We cover the show scene. We cover everything here in Las Vegas, and we'll actually look forward to meeting you when you come, and we'll talk about that before you come in November. Really excited to then see if we got something for the future. Okay, so finally, Michelle, please break this down for us. Where can we find you? Website, YouTube, your virtual training? Please give all that information so people can check you out.
Thank you so much. If you're interested in contest prep coaching, you want to get onto stage, then you contact us through TulumStrengthClub.com. My husband Jean Chaperette and I are the coaches for that. If you're interested in lifestyle transformation, so you look at my mom, Train with Joan, you're like, wow, I want that, then you would contact us through thewonderwoman.com, and it's just for women. And we have dedicated coaches. It's all one-on-one coaching, all online, and it's an incredible community of high-achieving women. So, and beginners are our specialty, so no worries there. And then you can follow me on MichelleMacDonaldOfficial.com. I do a lot of keynote speaking. I have an ebook out on strength training, building muscle for the older gal, and 35 plus. And I have a fitness app coming out as well, Stronger by Design, and my own podcast called Stronger by Design. And we have tons of doctors and experts in fitness and holistic health that we interview.
And what is the YouTube handle for everybody?
What is the
YouTube handle, the at to go see you?
Oh, on YouTube, that would be, each brand has a YouTube. So on mine, it would be Michelle MacDonald Official. We have Train with Joan, right? My mother, she also has a YouTube. A lot of followers. It's crazy. And the Wonder Woman Official. And we have a lot of great free information on our Wonder Woman Official, how to bench, how to squat, good row techniques, how to get your first pull-up. So that's another great place to go to.
So finally, let's sum it up. There is something for everybody.
I believe so. That's the goal. We want to get great information out there to as many different kinds of people as we can.
So for fitness coach Michelle MacDonald and CYInterview, I'm Christianic. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. If you like this video, again, please hit the like button below and please hit the subscribe button below to keep up with everything we have going on here at CYInterview. Michelle, thank you so much for this first CYInterview. We look forward to having you back soon and for more conversations. It was really great hearing about your story today.
Thanks, Chris.